Okay, perfect. That's carried. And we are now live once again. We're a little bit later, so hopefully our viewers didn't leave. So coming out of camera, I just want to report back that staff was given a direction with regards to a property matter. And with regards to the legal advice, we do have a motion that I will read. Before I read that, Ron, did we want to highlight anything about that?
Yeah, I think if I could just get Jeff to sort of summarize where we're at, the fact that who's on board and how we're moving forward. So Jeff.
Okay, so just give a little bit of summary on the Nagle Water water main extension. We have had a confirmation from all 12 residents that they would like to move forward with the water line at the presented costs that were presented to them last week, and we'll move forward and to do that. Moving forward, we'll talk to the MTO. We still have information there to go through. We have the lawyers will start to move the agreement forward to the residents and to the landowners, and we'll move forward with that and go from there.
Okay, great. So we do, as I said, we do have a motion coming out that I will read, and I will then need a mover and seconder for that. So resolve that council hereby approves in principle the water services agreement with respect to extending and providing municipal water services to the lot lines of the 12 residents along Nagle Drive. In order for Lucan Biddulph to assist with providing municipal servicing to this location, a water main is required to be extended to Nagle Drive, subject to easements for the construction and maintenance of a water main extension under land owned by a third-party landowner. Lucan Biddulph proposes to provide infrastructure for the supplying of water service to Nagle Drive and have agreed to pay $200,000 with respect to the capital costs of the waterworks. And each of the 12 residents are responsible for paying the remaining cost, which is approximately $32,046.92 per household. Additionally, in good faith, the municipality is agreeable to loan the residents the approximate $32,046.92 cost over an amortized period, subject to a report from an accountant confirming to the satisfaction of council that the loan terms are appropriate under the Municipal Act, and such terms are acceptable to council at its discretion. And council is directing the municipality to endorse the final water services agreement. A mover and seconder for that. Councillor Regan. A seconder, Councillor Westman. Any discussion on that? All opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Just before we move on to that, I just do want to thank, in particular, our Public Works Manager, Jeff Little, and our Public Works Assistant, Julie Overholt. This has been no small project, and there has been a considerable amount of behind-the-scenes work that has gone on with a number of parties, and of course, the 12 residents on Nagle Drive. And I don't think we could have gotten to this point without the work that the department's put into it. So I want to thank Jeff and Julie in particular. And then we've been using the county legal services to help with the drafting of the agreement and everything. And so I want to thank the county legal for all of the input that they put into the project. Okay, so moving on. I do just also want to make mention that we have now been joined by Catherine Langendijk and Paul Smith for the record. Okay, you've got in front of you the minutes from April the 7th. Let me pull it up here. And if there aren't any amendments to be made, can I get a mover and a seconder to approve council minute meetings of April 7th as circulated? Councillor Westman and a seconder, Councillor Masterakis. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes. I believe it is ongoing, but we did add in, what did we add in? The Frank Street. Yeah, we added the Frank Street construction to that list. So all of these are ongoing, and they will be brought forward as need be, unless there was anything in the minutes that council wanted to add to the business arising. Deputy Mayor.
Maybe not add, I'm just not sure if Ron was going to do it in his report, if he found anything out about the car wash. The intent, I'd ask for on that, but if he wasn't going to do it at this time, then was it a future time in the meeting? That's all.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up under my report, but I can certainly talk about that now. I've reached out to him. I haven't got any response back. I will continue to try and get a response out of him. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you. No answer. Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. Moving on to communications. The first one is a letter from Minister Steve Clark dated April 9th. And Ron, did you want to speak to that?
So this, the letter from the minister is in regards to the impact that it's having, the lockdown or the suspension of any expiration, any appeal periods on planning issues is causing us a bit of problems, I guess you could say. Council may recall that we had 4 severances approved for the Van Giel development on, I believe it's Phillip Street. And those were passed on St. Patrick's Day, March the 17th. Later that week, the province passed this new legislation suspending all appeal periods and then retroactively made it effective March 16th. So that really made everybody kind of scratch their head and go, okay, do we have to completely redo the decision or how does that work? So, you know, again, there's four applications that the Township of Lickman-Badolph did. There's probably 30 that the City of Toronto would have done. So luckily we weren't the only ones to deal with this situation. So the province has now had an opportunity to pass some legislation. It is not abundantly clear. So the county planning director, Dirk Vanderwerf, is trying to decipher a way forward. He is confident that this is going to be not as bad as what we once thought it could be. It may be as simple as we have to reissue the notice of passing, and then the appeals start, the 20-day appeal period in the case of the Van Giel applications starts as soon as we reissue, I guess you could say, that notice of passage. So we may be in a position to get legal advice to be able to do that later this week. So that would be good. I guess on the flip side, you know, the Van Giels are going to be able to do a bunch of background work and get ready for a permit, because obviously they can't dig a basement yet in light of the current conditions, but they can certainly get their ducks in a row and be ready to go when the curtain gets lifted. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any questions on that? Okay, the second letter is also from Minister Steve Clark that was received last week, April 16th. Ron.
So this one really deals with the, I think it has more to do with unionized environments in larger municipalities. It certainly gives the authority to municipalities to redeploy their employees to different areas which they wouldn't normally work. So, you know, for example, say arena workers who typically would do something, maintain the ice is no longer in, they can be redeployed to cut grass. And certainly that's what we are looking at as far as the arena employees. At this point, and maybe I can look to Paul Smith to jump in, but at this stage of the game, I think we were probably a month ahead or maybe a couple of weeks ahead of pulling the ice out. So the inside workers, if you want to call them that, had an opportunity to get ahead of the game as far as any maintenance inside the arena. So I think, Paul, if you want to pipe in at this point, you can say what the plan is for your guys, because it doesn't look like we'll be hiring summer students for grass cutting purposes.
No, luckily for us, we're also a smaller municipality, so our staff generally do multiple duties, and we already do a lot of the ground duties now, but we won't be at this point hiring any summer staff to offset to kind of help save where some of those revenue streams aren't coming in. And right now too, like even we've discussed on our recreation calls that some of that maintenance may be more minimum than in previous years, as we have to kind of make sure what we're doing is mandatory, right? Like it's not, we're not maintaining the ball fields as if it was a ball field. We just don't want it to get out of control, that when the curtain is lifted, we can no longer have baseball because it's gone into disrepair. So we just want to maintain our infrastructure, maintain our fields, maintain our parks, but not go, we won't be going crazy on them. It'll be a smaller intervals that we'll be maintaining them.
Okay. Councillor Regan, I think you had a question.
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to ask, when we talk about redeployment of staff, do we have a local, and we may, this already may address, but do we have a local emergency hotline for people who are in need in the community? I don't recall seeing it. There may be one, but I'm just thinking about if we're redeploying staff, we're doing that. Is that something that we could think about doing? Just for local concern, people in Lucan Biddulph, I was just wondering.
So we've started an email for any COVID questions and that sort of concerns. Paul, did you have something further to that?
Yeah, actually, this touches on something I was going to bring up in my reports later on. So I had reached out to South Huron on advice of Lisa DeBoer. They'd set up a telehealth check line, and Scott Curry provided me with kind of how that all worked. And Abby and myself have been kind of talking on how we could maybe provide something like that for residents. And it's more of kind of connecting the dots. So if they have information that they need, we always make sure we check back to the municipal website and the information we're giving, so it's all consistent. As well as my main concern was, if there's anyone that needs services, how do we facilitate that? Because it could get tricky if we were going out and buying them groceries and stuff like that. So, but more so it's we connect them to the people who can get them those things. And there are several things that Abby's come across. There's some local deliveries. There's some people that didn't normally deliver in our area that for a little bit more money might come this way. So we're looking into all sorts of different things that can happen, as well as like Lucan Drug Mart. They offer delivery, I believe, and Foodland provides curbside pickup. So we're going to try and facilitate it right now with Abby, if we can, if council likes this idea. And as it grows, if people kind of build into it and more people take advantage of the service, then we would have Abby maybe recruit volunteers and she would work as facilitating that. And that's kind of a way that we can still offer a service, especially to a lot of our seniors who, like in the Parks and Rec master plan, a big part of that was gearing towards the aging population and stop social isolation, which right now, you know, that's how we are. So a big key is to make sure those people we've connected and made a social communication with them, they don't lose that. So the idea is to do like a weekly call, or some people, I know Scott had said that some people sign up for once a month. Some people don't want to be bothered every week. Some people want to be bothered twice a week. But it's basically make sure they're okay, they're doing all right. If they need anything, we try and help gear them to where they need to go. So it's kind of like a Lucan Biddulph connect the dots.
So is that part of your report then?
That was part of my report. I hadn't had a full memo yet because we were still working on this Monday and a bit today. So I was going to do a verbal on that today.
Okay, so maybe we can recircle back during your report as to how council feels about that. Do you have anything further on that, Daniel?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Any other questions on that labor deployment memo? Okay, the next one is a draft press release that went out last week. And maybe I'll speak to that. It's from, was put out from Kara Finn, the Economic Development Officer at the county. So what the county has done in response to, of course, the COVID pandemic situation that we find ourselves in, is we have put together a task force that we hope, will aid in the resiliency of our Middlesex County economy, but then also provide steps to aid in the recovery of the economy. And we met for the first time last week, and who's at the table? There's a number of business owners from throughout the county, from the different sectors that we've got obviously businesses in. We've got like an ag sector rep, we've got a manufacturing sector, tourism, small business rep, and we've got representation from the lower tiers. And then we've got county council representation, and the draft obviously is blank, but Kelly Elliott, the deputy mayor from Chum Center, and Curtis Smith, the mayor from Adelaide Metcalfe, are the representatives, as well as myself from county council. And really, at this point, there's three areas of focus that we saw that we had a role to play in. And number one was the putting together all the information that is out there with regards to the programs that the feds, the province, and in some cases, municipalities are putting together to aid and assist businesses during this time. So everything is compiled on the county website with regards to all of that. So all that information is there. It's being continually updated with Kara's department and the IT department on a daily basis. Every time, our Prime Minister has his briefing every day, it seems there's a new announcement being made, but they're updating all of that constantly. Then the second area of focus is that now that all of those programs are being announced, is where are the gaps and who's falling through the gaps? Because we all know that there's many businesses throughout the county that for whatever reason may not fall into some of these programs. So let's find those gaps, either make them aware of, make those at the provincial or federal level aware of the gaps, or figure out how we can assist them in some way. And then of course, the third part will be the recovery phase. And that will obviously be in the days to come. So we met for the first time last week, and it was, I think, a very fruitful discussion. It was a long discussion, but I think that the representatives that Kara's put together from across the county certainly will aid in this, and hopefully we can do some good work. And certainly those minutes will be provided to each of the lower tiers as we meet and go through this process. Because like anything, I mean, this is evolving, and the task force could find 3 months from now that where we thought we were headed, maybe we need to go in a different direction. But certainly we will keep the communication with all lower tiers as to how we're working with that. So that is that piece. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. There are a number of other letters that we received in communications in the last couple of weeks. They're there for your information, and unless there was any that council wanted to pull, we can move on to our committee reports. Okay, CEDC. Lisa, did you have anything?
No updates yet, Kathy. I think we'll talk about our stuff with the memo you provided council regarding that. We've been kind of course, sharing everything on social media about what's happening as well. Kara's stuff, the county stuff is all on our website and other links for people to access. And we started an appreciation or recognition, or or people would nominate someone maybe in need, or someone has done something good in the community. So we started that this week. So we'll be giving out our first gift certificate on Thursday to Connie Elliott and her husband for a free little dinner. Just appreciate, because if everyone's seen that they've been making masks and donating everything, they've done a lot of work. So that's our first one for this week. So.
And did you want to make mention of the signs that are going up?
Oh, yeah. So you'll see tomorrow night, it should be. We've ordered 2 postcard portable signs to be erected. One is basically thanking our essential workers on behalf of, our community and those sort of frontline workers. It gives a few examples on there of different workers. So that's one. And then the other sign is thanking people for continuing to support our local businesses. So one of those will be located at Brian Lewis's farm outside of town, and the other one's just going to be up at the arena in that green space where we kind of put signage usually. So
Great. Any questions? Okay, Blue Water, anything, Deputy Mayor? Nothing? Lake Huron, nothing. Fireboards, nothing, I don't think. ABCA and Upper Thames.
There's meetings coming up in the next week. So we were all set up to do Zoom meetings for both conservation authorities. So we'll see how that goes. I'll have a report for next meeting.
Great, thanks, Alex. Parks and Recreation, nothing. Okay, and Canada Day, I think will be, maybe next meeting we'll have some direction on that, maybe. Okay, staff reports. Ron.
Unmute myself there. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first report there is the updated strategic plan. We had some questions from Councillor Mastarakis that I forwarded on to Sierra Planning and Design. They've now responded to that, and you can see their response as part of the report today. So I think at this point, it's ready for discussion, I guess, and if appropriate, to it would be appropriate to approve the new strategic plan for the next 4 years.
The revised, updated.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we talked a little bit before about the fact that staff had wanted to change the actual format of the reports on a go-forward basis. So I think, Peter, you had commented about that in your thing here as well, about it is our intention to quote another little section or put another little section in every report that comes to council, every manager's report, so that the recommendation somehow ties back in through the strategic plan, whether it be better government or financial, some sort of financial thing or goal or something that's within the strategic plan. So, that's going to be, we're going to fine tune that as we go forward. It's not going to be perfect going, it's going to take everybody a little bit of time to get onto that, but you'll notice that on a go forward basis starting tonight if the plan is adopted. So you'll see that. And then as far as the checkoffs or whatever, what have you, we can combine that with the capital budget planning process, which is usually done September, October. And then as part of the general budget, approval of the general budget, we can also discuss it at that point and sort of almost go through it with a checkboard to see what we've done, what we still need to do, because a lot of those things that we're hoping to achieve obviously come with a cost. So that's the appropriate time to do those kinds of discussions. So.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Comments, Peter. Councilor Mastarakis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I appreciate you sending my comments forward to Sierra. And for me, it was part of our vision initially was one of the points is being active counselor. So I was definitely active here. So I hope you're happy. So as part of the process and ensuring that all of this ties back to our values, accountability, transparency, integrity. As I was going through the document, I saw some disconnects where it looked like a work plan was being put inside of the strategic plan. And that's what brought up some additional questions. Sierra was great in the responses. They aligned with what expectations were, so clarified on my behalf, made some tweaks to the strategic plan. And as Ron talked about, one of the key components is ensuring the annual review or progress report is undertaken. as Sierra noted as well, in consistent current practice, other municipalities do the detailed work plan, and then also develop a template, as you mentioned, where these items are incorporated into the meeting. So everything we're doing is tied to hitting our goals, hitting our plan. And if, of course, this is fluid as well, as we're in an environment that's changing. So we will make changes as required. And the other key component is that this does not tie in the next council to the decision process, that they're locked in. Whoever comes in for the next 4 years has to follow this lead. When I believe Councillor Regan and I were at a governance session when we first did our pre-councillor training, there was a CAO talking about how they do their strategic plan, an offsite review every 4 years when a new council comes in, just to ensure and staff together to go over the plan and look at direction. So very happy with those changes as mentioned, and thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Peter. Any other comments or questions with regards to the report or the strategic plan as it's been updated? Oh, okay. Certainly, you know, Councillor Mastarakis again mentioned about being active and you know, putting input in. I think that the session that we had when we were updating the strategic plan was great. You know, and you almost think it's good to have those sessions as a council and staff because we're interacting in a different way than we do around the horseshoe. And, you know, that might be also something that we incorporate in doing when we review it on a yearly basis. Again, is just kind of going into those small little work groups and have that sort of interaction, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I think we get a lot out of that. And as I say, it's a different way of working than when we're around the horseshoe. So looking forward to the update. I think it's great. I know when we went through the update, I was surprised actually how much we had gotten done from when we first initialized the strategic plan. So I'm anxious to work through our updated version. Okay, anything else, Ron?
Just the second report, I had a bit of an update on the provincial legislation as it relates to the COVID-19 situation. So I tried to summarize. I actually pulled a lot of this stuff from other municipal reports as well. So I tried to condense it down and not bore everybody to death here, because I think everybody's getting to the point where they're getting exhausted anytime the word COVID-19 comes up. But it is quite important. It does change on a fairly regular basis, but I think everybody should have expected that. I think we at a staff level expected that. You can't pass a piece of legislation that you know, that quickly that covers all the situations. So once it gets passed, the sort of the umbrella legislation, then all the special circumstances kind of float to the surface, and then the province has been dealing with that. So I think they've done a great job actually doing what they've done so far. They've been very, you know, willing to listen to what our problems are and address those problems. So very thankful for that. We do at a municipal level have weekly emergency control group meetings, just so that all of council understands that. Every Friday at 10 o'clock is sort of our standard time. That involves the mayor, the deputy mayor, all the department heads, the OPP, the health unit, Bettina Weber, and John Elston from the county. And we basically go around the table and so what has changed since the previous week? What are we looking towards for the next week? Does anybody need any help? That kind of thing. So it's they're not lengthy meetings, but I think they are valid. And you know, I do want to thank Lisa. I think she's doing a great job trying to keep everybody informed on our social media pages. So thank you, Lisa. That's not an easy job, because the information comes quick and numerous. So I thank you for that. The other thing I'd like to say is Prince George Retirement Home is probably our most fragile organization that is looking at this COVID situation. In touch wood, they've so far been unaffected. I do want to give kudos to the management there. They've done a great job. They've been ahead of the curve on things like gowns and masks and sort of prohibiting anybody from coming in or actually even the residents leaving. They don't prohibit them to leave. You can leave, but then you can't come back in. So it is, they've done a great job protecting the people in that building. And so thank you very much to them as well. And thank you to the staff. The staff has been great. We've been, it's kind of business as usual around here, but it's not really usual because the door is locked. However, I haven't heard too many complaints, and I look to council. If you do get complaints from people, please let them know that we are here to serve, and we're simply a phone call or an email away from assistance. And yeah, it's we try and do our best. It's not perfect, but we're trying to do our best, and I do think that as best as possible, life is continuing. So I believe that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Any questions for Ron? Okay, moving forward. Tina, do you have anything?
No, not this time. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, building and bylaw. Nothing, maybe, I don't know, Ron, just on your last report, and I just see bylaw. I'd just like to remind or let council know that the enforcement of any of the physical distancing parameters that have been put down is being left to the police, but kind of partnering with local bylaw, and our bylaw officers are patrolling maybe a little bit more parks and areas that people would normally congregate at, just to see if, make sure that people are respecting the physical distancing. And to this point, we haven't had any issues, Ron, right?
No, correct, Madam Mayor. We have semi-regular county-wide CAO meetings as well to discuss if anybody's got any issues. And I believe at the last CAO meeting last Friday, I believe there was just one incident in Strathroy-Caradoc where somebody a business actually got fined, but that was only after being warned numerous times. So, we always try and educate people first. We're not in this to try and make money from levying of fines or anything like that. So, and people have been very good. Certainly, I haven't had too many complaints or too many issues. I looked at Paul Smith. I don't believe we've had any issues in our parks, not that I've heard anyway. So, pretty thankful for that. I think Mother Nature's maybe playing a bit of a part in that so far. But yeah, on a go forward basis, we'll have to see when the nice weather hits what happens. So.
Paul.
Yeah, if I may, just for clarification, our green spaces and paths are still open. I know there's been some miscommunication, and that's just clearly because our bylaw officers are countywide, and some of the different municipalities in our county have gone completely to total shutdown, and that's sheerly probably due to their population size. They've had a harder time doing it. I'd like to thank our residents. I think they've been doing a great job at maintaining social distancing, and especially like with the nice weather, still not using our sports fields, still not going to the parks, and still not trying to climb on the playground. So I'm really thankful.
Good, thank you. Okay, Public Works, Jeff.
Okay, Madam Mayor, obviously there's, we'll just touch base on Magle. We've talked quite a bit about it so far, but I just want to give everybody a brief timeline, what's going to take place moving forward. So this week, I plan on updating all the residents with the timeline, with what needs to take place over the next 2 weeks. So because we can't take our foot off the pedal, we need the agreement to be signed as soon as everybody's comfortable with everything in the agreement. I've been trying to be very honest with everybody and trying to fill in as much detail as I can so that when the agreement does arrive, there's no hidden surprises with that. So the lawyers will be in contact with each other this week, and we can move ahead with the agreement. The other thing I'm planning, I've already reached out to the engineer and the contractor. I'd like to have a meeting electronically, obviously, and discuss and to confirm where we are, what we're going to do, and what the plan is moving forward when the agreement gets signed and the tender can move forward. So that'll be done this week. We'll get that moving. And but basically, the other thing I said is I'm happy all 12 are on board. It makes the project, even though there's residents that are happy, there's some residents that maybe are not happy, but they understand. But I think in the long run, it'll make it a much more pleasant project once we get started and get going on this. So other than that, there'll be lots more communication going to follow up in the next 2 weeks, hopefully, on that. So.
Great.
The next report, Madam Mayor, which is a very important report, although there's not a lot of information there. BM Ross did their evaluation on our capacity at the Lucan wastewater treatment plant and did an update for 2020. I think I verbally mentioned it at the last council meeting that we actually gained some capacity through the new housing. Seems to be a little more efficient with water usage. So we're finding as each unit is added to the wastewater treatment plant, the average use is actually below. So it's actually gone down the amount that's coming into the plant per unit. So that's actually increased the amount of units we can put into the plant. So we look at 294 units will be what we can still is what our reserve capacity going forward with new development is. As in the report, I point out that we have numerous inquiries to the planning department. The inquiries will reach out past the 294 units. So as we move forward over the next year, we will run out of capacity that we can allocate out to development, which then will doesn't mean we can't stop developing. It just means that we have to put a time limit or a timetable on the next development that going forward over the next few years. So it's exciting. In the discussions with BM Ross, expansion is still on the books. We're moving forward with that. They're looking at the studies and that procedure is still on the timetable. We're looking at starting that process, hopefully with council's approval, sometime in 2021, which would be next year. So moving forward, that looks good. But the main thing with this report is there's nothing out of the unusual. There's nothing that shows up that really we haven't talked about in 2019 or what the numbers were presented in 2000. There's no change. We're still moving forward. And things still look like we're on schedule for what has been decided with everything out there. So I open it up to questions. I'm sure there's a few on that.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. Questions, Deputy Mayor.
Jeff, would we issue permits right up to the 294 units, or is it? Did I read this somewhere? It's best practice to run it at 80% capacity. That would be 80% of the 294 you'd issue permits out at.
Well, it is nice to be able to say that we're going to be less than 100%, Deputy Mayor. But at the same time, we can approve the development moving forward for the capacity that's there, because and we have the safety valve built into this system of the lagoons. So a lot of places that don't have that safety valve would not want to get close to 100%. Where Lucan is very lucky in having the lagoons in place. It's like a safety valve. So when we do have those large flows that might overwhelm the plant, we can use the lagoons as kind of basically like a holding tank and then switch that material back over to the plant when we can. So the idea in BM Ross is basically looked at the lagoons as our backup, as our safety valve.
So that would be to issue permits to the full out 294.
The 294, yes. The development, yeah, yes. And as we
Development hook up to 294 to not save any of that.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, as we issue building permits, we'll have to see how the plant's performing. But the idea is that we should have expansion going in before we ever get to the end of the building process. So even though the development process might come to capacity, the building capacity will still be going on as we do the expansion.
Yeah. Do you not think there's going to be a gap between our 294 being fully used and utilized, with the talk of 5-story apartment buildings fully utilized, and there could be a small gap there between new capacity? And that's my concern, is that if there was going to be just when I look at the numbers and the growth and the potential density going forward, you're saying that you feel that we will have excess capacity and have the expansion done?
No, we won't. We won't. Let's back up a little bit. You got to make sure that we're not confusing capacity for development and capacity for building. So we have a capacity for development to a certain point, and then that'll stop. And then as that then builds out over the next few years, we should be starting the expansion. So as the apartment building does get built, if that's what gets deemed to that capacity, we should be at the same time, if we are getting close to 100%, and it is a council decision when to expand. There's no doubt about it. That expansion will be taking place as the rest of the build out is in process. So we should never really reach the 100%. It would be nice to have the expansion in place by the time we reach the 100%. And that's the idea behind the timetable.
Yeah, no, understand. No, it's perfect planning, but we're just seem to be getting close, and the higher density that's coming forward just could be a concern. That's all, just a comment.
And just a little bit of a comment and there's going to be a report coming back sooner than later. The headworks replacement has been one of the bottlenecks at the plant. So I'm not saying that's going to give us extra capacity, but it certainly will allow the plant to run more efficient, so that when we do replace the headworks, the plant will be more efficient, so that we won't have such we can approach that 100% with more a certainty that we're going to be okay.
But that replacement, then, that's a good point. Will you be doing, after that's installed, another capacity count then to see if maybe it did increase our capacity, or no? Or is that more about efficiency than capacity?
That's more about efficiency. Okay. So the capacity side of things, really what it'll come down to is our storage for our biosolids will be the next real we'll really be short on our storage. There's a works in with our biosolids contractor that disposes of them. We're working at making that more efficient. So I think we're covered in the short term, but the real need on capacity will be the storage of the biosolid at that plant.
Thanks.
Councillor Regan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So in point 3 on the analysis, it talks about the current rate of growth will reach a capacity in 2026. So my concern is that rate of growth grows up, it increases. The current rate goes, 10, 15, 20% more with high density housing, like the deputy mayor has mentioned. And I'm just kind of concerned. That's 5.5 years. And that really concerns me, because if that rate of growth, and we're growing, but if that rate of growth continues at the same rate, that's cutting it pretty close. And what if that rate of growth increases? I mean, if that's something that we're going to be looking at, I mean, that, you know, at some point we're going to be reaching at 100%. We're going to, looks to me like we'd be going over it if we started that current rate. That's my concern. And I'm not sure what that current rate of growth is now. And do we plan on increasing that? Is that in the works?
So the rate of growth is how many buildings they can get built physically in the ground. So you're right. If all the builders decide to build everything we've got tomorrow, then we would reach the 100%. There's no doubt about it. Having said that, if you look at the last year, even the amount of homes that were built, and we did a tremendous amount compared to what we did 2 or 3 years ago, that's taken into effect. We're not going to build 3 times as many homes as we did last year. If we put up an apartment building and whether there's 60 units in it or similar to the units that was built behind us right now, 26 unit, that's all still built into the numbers. So yes, we may approach that year 26 sooner. It might be 2025 if everything gets built all at once. But again, we'll do another update in 2021 and see exactly what's been built this year. So if that shows up, then there's more pressure on the expansion to move forward if that's what council wants. So these numbers do have to be looked at all the time. There's no doubt about it. And the closer you approach that 100%, there you have to keep a closer eye on it. So
Mike.
I was just going to say, just before you follow up, Councillor Reagan, I think Ron just wanted to take in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just clarify a little bit, Jeff, to Jeff's point, we had record construction last year. And when we did this calculation a year ago, we had less units of capacity left than we did now. So I think to, it's kind of borne out what Jeff had said earlier, is that these new houses are more efficient in the way they manage their water usage. So whereas before, maybe it was, and I don't know exactly what the number was, but maybe it was 1 cubic meter per person per household. Every household is 2.2 people. So you just do the math. I think what we're finding now is all the new houses are using, I think Jeff, you said it was 0.9?
it was 0.9.
0.9 cubic meters.
0.85.
Yeah, so it's decreasing. So even though we're building houses, our number is getting larger as well. So so there's that. That's a positive. That's a good thing. The other point I wanted to make was that an apartment unit is not won't be the same calculation as a single family home either, for obvious reasons. So if it's a 100-unit apartment building, maybe that's the equivalent of 40 single family homes or something like that as well. So okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Further follow-up, Daniel?
So my concern following that is, and if I'm wrong, let me know, but when you're talking about houses, are we talking about units? Are we talking about people? Because we have young families, lots and lots of more and more people are coming, more and more stress and strain on the wastewater treatment plant. So that's my concern, is that when we're looking at numbers, and we might say we're only going to build X number of houses, you're basing it on 2.2 people per house, but in the next 3 or 4 years, how many more kids are we going to, children are going to be in the municipality? How many more families are going to get bigger? And that's why I'm concerned about that 2026 date. Like, I think we're going to hit it quicker. I'm concerned about that. So, I'm not questioning your math. I'm just saying when we're looking at, so Jeff, we're looking at, we can handle so many homes. It's the people in those homes. And that's sort of what I need to know about. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Jeff.
If I may, Madam Mayor, so when they do those calculations, Councilor Reagan, they do take in effect that a house has so many people in it, an apartment has so many people in it, and like a single bedroom versus a double bedroom. There is a conversion factor, and they call them units. So I believe an apartment building is like a 0.6 of a house. So there is all that taken into the process of figuring out how many units. So just because we say 294 units, that's rated out into whether it could be houses, it could be apartments, and there's a calculation on that. So we'll keep a very close eye on those 294 units, and we won't allow any more to go out past that, because obviously you can't exceed the 100% of your plant. And if your concern is when we do reach that 100% and we've built everything out we can, it still doesn't mean we stop developing. We can still have developments in the pipeline if we know the expansion's coming. So next year, if we do start moving forward with expansion, if we commit to that, we can start committing to development in the same timeline as the expansion's going on. So, it would be, I can't say we would never have to stop everything all at once. But hopefully this process is lining up that it's going to kind of work in tandem with everything.
Okay. Ron, did you have anything more to add to that?
No, I think Jeff said it best. I think the last year to me really shows where we're going, because the expansion or the number of units got larger, even though we had a tremendous amount of construction, and most of the construction was single family homes. So I understand where Councillor Reagan is coming from, but I look to the past year of history to support what Jeff is saying here. So thank you.
Just one thought maybe, and of course this isn't essential, so maybe it won't be during the times that we're meeting via Zoom, but or even you could even maybe just email it out to council, is just a reminder of what that timeline looks like. Jeff, if you don't mind, and so we get a better idea of the marks that we're going to be hitting leading up to making that decision in 2021.
Definitely. And Madam Mayor, just to follow that up a little bit, I did just, when I first started, just touched on, I do want to bring forward another report to council, because we do have the expansion, which is on everybody's mind, because there's a lot of, we still don't know what the COVID situation will play out, but we also have the Headworks replacement. We have Frank Street. We've talked about Saintsbury and Alice Street also all have affecting, and the Chestnut pumping station is in the mix. So there is a whole list of issues that are all connected like a spider web. And I believe council, I'm going to bring back a report on that circle, or that connection with everything that's going to take place over the next anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So I think that's really important, so we all have an understanding where this community is going to go with its wastewater. So
perfect. Thank you. Is that it? Do you have anything else, Jeff?
The only thing I just wanted to verbally, Madam Mayor, just to touch base on is, and I've been in contact, Lucan Badolf. We do flowers in Lucan and we do flowers in Granton. The flowers were ordered in January, and we are in the process of planning that work for May. And I just want to make sure council is aware that my plan is to continue with that. I think it is a great boost to the municipality and to everybody to see those flowers. I think we have a great reputation on the flowers that are there. So I'm putting in plans to continue with the flowers. Obviously, we'll have to install them through isolation and proper procedure and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to make sure council, because certainly installing or putting flowers in on Main Street is a little different than fixing potholes on the road. So I just wanted council to know that I'm proceeding with the flower program.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
Any questions for Jeff at this? Dave, Deputy Mayor.
Just Jeff, was there flowers though you just left out Clandy Boy? Is there anything that go there or not? And if there isn't, maybe not this year, but in the future, I'm not even sure if I'm correct, and maybe it was a complaint by a resident that they didn't get any, or that it got corrected and they got some, you know?
My understanding is we don't have flowers going into Clandy Boy, but I definitely will look into that and do a follow-up information on that. I know
Yeah.
we talked about Granton and we talked about Main Street, Lucan, and the signs coming in to Lucan, but I'll follow up with that, Deputy Mayor.
Like the hanging plants, I mean, in Clandy Boy.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's a possibility, and if not, if there's a possibility to think about that in the future.
Okay. Definitely. I'll follow up.
Any other questions for you? It occurs to me that I skipped over Catherine and went right to Jeff. Catherine, I'll circle back.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to say that the audit team was supposed to be in-house here on this week. They were scheduled to be, but they're still proceeding with the audit. They're just going to do it on a remote basis, and so I've given them a lot of the information they asked for and see how much they can get done with that. So that's good news for the 2019 audit proceeding as planned.
Okay, and that's it.
That's all.
Okay, any questions for Catherine? Councillor Mastarakis.
With maybe this is Ron too, with meetings with other CAOs and other finance, are they doing scenario analysis with COVID to see what the potential impacts are on taxes, water bills, our revenues? We've got the daycare. I'm not sure where the revenues are, what's happening there, how are we impacted? Are we going to be putting a scenario analysis together or an update to see where we're going and how we might address it? Or what's the thoughts, what's happening with other municipalities?
Well, I do have a meeting with the rest of the treasurers on this Friday, so I'm hoping you can discuss what everyone else is doing. I know everybody is probably thinking about all these things and as we go forward, or how long we're going to be in this situation. Decisions will have to be made in the next month about different things. So I'll know more about that after I have a discussion with them and see what everyone else is doing as far as taxes and cash flow and analysis and stuff like that.
Yeah, to echo what the treasurer has said there, Madam Mayor, the countywide CAOs, certainly the discussion has been there. There's been no sort of, yeah, we're going to do this from any one municipality at this point in time. I think we're trying to, hopefully this will end sooner rather than later, but I believe the large majority, with maybe the exception of Strathroy Caradoc, I believe all the other lower tiers are on the same sort of time scale as we are as far as tax payments go. So our next installment is due the end of May. So at this point, we're just kind of monitoring and seeing what everybody's going to do. The province obviously has passed legislation basically granting a 90-day extension to payments from the lower tiers to the school boards. So that is a bit of a plus for us. I believe the county is looking at, how are they going to do that? What does that mean as far as their financial impact goes? Hopefully they are in a better position, probably in a better position than most lower tiers, from the fact that they just sold the actual property that the county building sits on. So they might be cash rich at this point.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, but I do think we're trying to. So far, all the lower tiers have been consistent in the way we've been sort of providing services and doing things. So hopefully that will continue. But it's an ongoing discussion, and as time goes by, we'll hopefully have a better report for you. But and one more thing, sorry, Madam Mayor, we are keeping track of any COVID related expenses, and so we haven't incurred too much at this point yet. Having said that, though, obviously there's a lack of revenue coming in from things like the arena rentals and things like that. So as time goes by, we're going to see a bit of an impact on that, but certainly that's going to be probably another month away before Catherine could ever bring a report, a good report that actually means something to council. So.
Any other questions for Catherine? Okay, moving on. Paul, Parks and Rec.
So just touching back on that last one as well, we are keeping track now of revenue loss by canceling of rentals, as well as luckily in this season right now where we don't have a lot of rentals. When we look at the expense compared to revenue for things like camp, pool, baseball, soccer, the lost revenue to expense almost balance out. So that's a positive. We're not really in dire straits until we get closer to the hockey season. And then I think that's going to be a different story then that we'll have to look at to see, because hockey is obviously a very large revenue stream for us. Other than that, we're moving along as normal. We're doing our maintenance right now because it's very important we keep maintaining our infrastructure because we don't want these things to just go. So part of that equipment, we've put a tender for the truck out, and we only received one back, which is odd, but I guess that Jeff and I had discussed briefly that some of these places don't like to do commercial trucks, and maybe that's an issue with that. The price is very favorable. It was $6,307 under budget, and it was through HMP was the only one who submitted, with the dump box from Commander Industries in Strathroy, and they met our stacked above and beyond what we spec the truck for. We also really downgraded the specs because we know what type of vehicle this is. It's a work vehicle. We don't need anything fancy. And if council is okay with that, we'd like to go ahead with offering the purchase of the 2020 Chevrolet Silverado to HMP for $48,693.
Any questions on that tender? Right.
And then just going back to our conversation before about the helpline that Abby and myself have been discussing, I think it's really good, especially she's been doing a lot of clerical work for us right now, administrative stuff. And I think as our services are switching and there's less and less, it'd be nice to have her still have a good role connecting with these people. That she's done such a great job with really building this whole group in our society. And I think it's also important to address, it's not just for seniors. We say seniors, but I guess it's also for individuals in isolation. There could be someone in their 30s living alone on a farm and say they get stuck there for 14 days. They don't have anyone around to connect with. And it would be for anyone who wants to connect is the idea of that whole thing.
Just on that note, Paul, so the health unit has actually a whole list of resources with regards to, grocery deliveries and pharmacy deliveries and all of that sort of thing. And then again, tying into the county website. So while those, are larger and they're including, beyond our borders, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, maybe look at some of the things that are already being done.
Yep.
And try to tie in with that. And then anything that you put together, I would encourage that you let the county know and let the health unit know, because they're always updating, that their list of resources as well.
Yeah, I discussed this in our recreation weekly meeting too with the other municipalities. And I think this is something I'm going to pass on to them, because there was at least one other person that was very interested in it. And I know for a smaller municipality like ours, there's certain telecheck health lines that are run by a company, which isn't ideal for us. We don't want to put on extra expenses. So it's kind of a nice way for us to provide a service and just kind of, that's what I was saying to Abby, connect the dots is what we're trying to do here, where we can't necessarily facilitate, but we can help get them the connections that they need. And even some of those we'll go to the county-wide ones and we'll go to the health unit ones. And I know a lot of those would be geared to the larger places. So it'd be good reference material for us to have. So I think consistency is our main thing. So health unit, county, municipal, everyone. We just need to make sure that we've got all those things together, and that will be her tool to use to connect people.
Mhm. Well, I think that phone number, or from what I understand, the one in South Huron, it's that check-in. So maybe it's a mental health support, or, maybe it's trying to find a emergency physiotherapist or something like that. So, no, that's great. Good.
Yeah, and even on that base, a lot of I think a lot of their council members have now actually become their main volunteer base, because a lot of them have jobs they're sitting at home now. So, but I think at first we're going to run with Abby, kind of just putting it out there, seeing what interest there is, and then at that we'll reach back out for volunteers if it becomes very subscribed to.
Great. Any questions on that for Paul? Okay. Dave, Deputy Mayor.
Not on that, but just conversation, like something just for Paul for Parks and Rec. What the maintaining though the ball diamonds and the soccer fields for anticipation of potentially an opening in July or August. Not that I want us to spend money, but if I don't know if those associations, which they're not allowed on the property, nor should they, if they would typically fill divots and topsoil, say, stuff in the soccer fields and maybe even the ball diamonds, if materials there that typically the parks guys would bring out, but they would prep the fields, will there be consideration for that? Because if things open up again, I'd like to see it green light go for them, not having to start as if it was, April, March, April coming out, if that makes sense. But again, if we had to purchase a bunch of product and a risk it never did open, I'm not in favor of that. But if it's sitting there, I hope your guys are going to prep it maybe on stuff you wouldn't typically do.
Yeah, no, a lot of that maintenance we usually do to get it ready for the season. There, besides the pitching mound, I think is the main one that baseball does, or putting the nets on the soccer posts. But other than that, we do all that to get it ready anyways, and we're going ahead with that.
Good.
And also there's some major issues that we wanted to address with those fields that we now have time that we can do, and actually hope to get seed on it, because we were trying to implement a plan earlier on how we were going to do this work and have people still being able to play without damaging the seed growth. So now we're going to get that stuff done, which is good. And I agree with you. I hope that once it goes green light, they can go right back to it. I'm a little bit more hesitant to see how comfortable parents are going to be to put their kids together in sports right away, but I think we'll be gradual on that. Talking with them still, no one's really pulled the plug yet on any of their seasons. Everyone's just kind of prolonging it and pushing it off. And I think the major conversation with the recreation group that I'm in is that maybe at one point, if it pushes, they might have to discuss, we'd have to get everyone on board, maybe even hockey, soccer, baseball would all have to kind of shift. And I know at one point hockey used to start in October, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, but we're kind of just seeing as we go how that looks.
If also another question on the pool, would we take the lead on that, or will we be waiting for provincial direction on that? As far as would we consider, is there a time where we're going to be spending any money where it doesn't make sense, and Luke and Biddulph would simply not have a pool for the one season? Parents then, if things open up throughout London and other places, they can plan to take their kids there for lessons, and that we be proactive in this and take the lead, or are we just going to wait for provincial direction?
I'd be, because we haven't hired any staff yet, and I'm not planning on doing any major maintenance that we would normally do on the pool yet this year until I know more, because I also don't, even if tomorrow they went back to normal, I still think the odds of people being comfortable with all going into a pool together might be very slim. But maybe we'll have to look at that as it goes on. I know there's some places that have already pulled the plug on having a season with their pool. That's surely because they had major maintenance to do this year anyways, that they felt wasn't going to affect the season anyways.
Because as time ticks, if that's something we're going to consider and things do open up, I mean, at least it gives our residents time for the 10-week period for this year only to that we decide to close the pool. But anyways, something to consider.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm advising Abby not to start taking any bookings for swimming lessons or camp yet at all, because I don't want to get people's hopes up yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Paul?
No, I think, ABCA is going to be continuing on with the tree planting that they had planned with us, because
Okay.
they've developed a COVID-19 work plan. It'll be very minimum contact with people. Everyone should respect distancing. I hope if they see them out there. On that note, also with the recreation group, we've been talking a lot about contract workers, as some of them have a lot of lawn care contract workers, and how we are going to deal with that as a essential service. So I know one of them is we're wanting to compile a checklist for contract workers to do and go through and answer questions and sign off on every time they're coming into one of our facilities or doing any work for us, just so we can reassure ourselves that they're doing a self-assessment. And we're even discussing that may even become commonplace after all this. I will be attending a webinar tomorrow on developing facility business plans in a post-COVID world. So we'll see how that more information will come out on the same kind of ideas.
Okay. I know what came out of our county emergency control group meeting this week was if you are doing any work with any third party companies with regards to any sort of outdoor maintenance, is if you provide them a letter that they are working on behalf of the municipality, just because the rules around lawn maintenance and private versus public, there's a lot of gray areas, and that was just the recommendation. I don't think we do very much with that, but if you were to ever enter into anything, maybe just make sure you've got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know as well with my staff, I've discussed with them on the appropriateness of maintaining that distance. So I wouldn't have ideally two people working in one park either. And we've also labeled our equipment. So if you have tractor number 1, you're on tractor number 1, that's your equipment for the whole season. So we're kind of working in that basis.
Very good. Any questions for Paul? Okay, Lisa, economic development.
I just wanted to mention we had a brief meeting with Mike and Teresa from Hogtown Cycles regarding Bacon Fest. Everyone's kind of wanting to know what's going on. So we basically have said let's regroup May 1st and see kind of where we're at. See if the province has made any directives at that point. And I know that there's one major event that's going to make that decision that day as well in London. So, you know, we'll see kind of where everyone's at come May 1st, and we'll have a little meeting, and we'll back with Mike and Teresa, and then we'll meet with our group again to discuss, you know, what the decision will be. And I think we can make assumptions about what the decision might be, but officially we're going to wait till then.
See if there's any formal directive from the province. So, okay, any questions for Lise? Okay, moving on to councillors' comments. We'll start with the memo that was sent out yesterday that I put together, and I hope you've all had the time to be able to go through this. And just to recap it all, where it came from was, as I indicated in the memo, that early on in this, I'd been approached by the Lions Club, wondering how they could be of assistance to the community with regards more of a social assistance. And they've been involved in some quieter projects, and they're managing those quite well. And then was approached by a number of residents throughout the community, concerned about residents that might have been laid off or found themselves in some sort of hardship with regards to the pandemic. And again, kind of going back to what I spoke about with regards to the county resiliency task force, falling into that gap in between, you know, being laid off and funds flowing through, or You know, I think what we're finding out is the feds will announce a program and then they'll realize that, oh, they're missing this group of people. And so I had quite a discussion with representatives from the Lions Club, and how do you help? What do you do? How do you respect anonymity? Social services is not a responsibility of the lower tier, and in speaking to senior staff, it's not something that they want to get involved with. In that, if there's a need from somebody determining, you know, how they qualify for perhaps a food gift certificate, you know, what I'm looking for is not to be that prescriptive, I should say. And obviously, so if the staff, if the township wouldn't manage it, who would? And that brought us back to the Lions Club. And so the Lions Club are on board to help with, you know, coming in as a partner for a fund like this, and then working with faith groups and social services at the county, because they will know of people that are already in their database in the Lucan-Biddulph community that might require assistance. So what this would look like would be the fund would be set up, and then if somebody knew of a need for a family, they would go to one of the faith-based groups, and then the faith-based organization would go to the Lions Club and say, I need a $100 gift certificate for an individual. And so anonymity, privacy would be respected. And of course, this wouldn't be a long-term solution. It's only really a Band-Aid. To be quite honest, we don't know what sort of intake we'll get. We might get a lot of intake and we might not get very much, but we do know that our local food bank has had certainly an incredible uptake in requests for people requiring food. And so this is, you know, I think I said this a few minutes ago, it's a Band-Aid. It really is. It's a short-term solution that could help out residents. My longer-term goal would be to come up with some sort of social service task force at our level. There and really where that comes from, and that'll be part of a broader discussion I have with the groups involved. But there's a few people that are that have approached me about helping out, and then there's been a couple of key people involved in the Lions Club that have said, you know, long term, how are we going to support these people? Whether it's setting up, you know, a job banks resource office, or helping to match employers and employees, and bouncing off what's already being done at the library. So that's the kind of the bigger picture of maybe where we would have a role to play. But certainly my short-term goal is to come to council, request a matching investment of $3,000 to be given to the Lions Club to help set up some sort of social service fund that will help those in our community at this time. And I would take any questions or comments. Councillor Masterakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great initiative. One comment to your point earlier about recreating the wheel. We have the food bank. If it's all related to food, if they can get the food at a better cost, more efficient, is that, we don't want to be the Lucan food bank.
No.
Food bank necessarily.
No, and they would be somebody that would be brought to the table because again, they know their clients and that sort of thing. So it would be working with them. The issue always with the food bank has always been accessibility, because they're in Elsa Craig and Lucan. So again, you know, I've just had these initial discussions with various parties. My hope is if you approve this, tomorrow, you really, really nail down how this is going to be rolled out. But I want to get the funding in so we can get this going. But absolutely, the food bank would be a member would be a voice at that table. Lisa, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think, what Peter's point is, like, yeah, maybe it'd be cheaper for them to use, the food bank for their groceries or those donations to them. But I think the food bank's limited as to what they can offer. Like, it's all non-perishable goods. So you're not getting really some of these, the meats or the fresh milks and all those sort of things that these families may be missing out on. And maybe it's not just groceries that they need. Maybe it's help with something else for their kids, or beyond that, we don't know. I guess we've only really thought about groceries at this point, but I think it could evolve into maybe they need something else besides that.
Councillor Reagan.
I just wanted to say, I think this initiative shows a great deal of leadership and compassion in a very difficult time. I totally support it. That's it.
Any other questions or comments? Alex, did you have a comment?
Yeah. So the $3,000, that's, can we do better? Maybe 5,000 or what's?
The Lions Club is willing to, at this point, donate $3,000.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I honestly think that's a reasonable amount. We don't know what it's going to look like. As I said, there could be a lot of uptake. There may be no uptake to it. But it's a starting point.
Yep. Okay.
Dave, did you have a comment or no? Any other questions or comments? Okay, there is a motion that will be included. We can do that at the end, and then you guys can vote as you see fit. Okay. And then I will again continue, like I'll report back at next council meeting how that went and update you on that. Okay, any other councillors' comments? Deputy Mayor, and then Peter, and then Alex.
Yes, I got two questions. One, maybe Lisa actually or Kathy could answer. There seemed to be something going around Lucan yesterday or the day before. Was there something on Facebook or something on social media or through London Free Press on COVID-19 cases, and it listed Lucan with under 5 cases, and then when you do explain it, what I'm wondering is then what is our cases in Lucan? So sorry, go ahead.
So I can speak to that, and actually, that list that went was probably a week old. I've got new numbers again. So part of being warden in the county emergency control group, and Dr. Mackey, who is the medical officer of health with the health unit, he sits on that control group. And at my meeting last week, so whenever he's delivered numbers as to obviously Middlesex, London, and he's been able to separate, he's always separated them out, or he's been able to from the county and the city. And I had asked him in our emergency control group if there was any way to drill down to being able to provide numbers for the lower tiers. And so he was able to provide that. And so the list that went out, circulated, I don't know how that was circulated, but it was. But I've got up-to-date numbers today because I was a guest on the health unit press briefing today. And so he provided those. So in the county, there are, I got to figure this out here. There have been 21 cases, or I shouldn't say that, 29 cases of COVID-19, and 308 in London. So that's drilled down to 15 in Strathroy, 6 in Middlesex Center, and then the balance in the other lower tiers. And the health unit will report them just as less than 5, because the number becomes so small. The concern is if you say there's 1 in Lucan and Biddulph, because we're a small community, there's likely a privacy issue with that, in that people may be able to figure it out. So only when your community gets over 5 cases will that number be quantified.
That's a great explanation. Maybe Lisa could put that on the township website. That's excellent. Yeah, because I didn't know how to answer it. That's excellent. Okay, good. Okay, good. And then the second thing is for Ron, and it's more for clarification because it looks like I got some positive news on a question I was going to ask Ron, and maybe people will be wondering why the building's starting back up again. I got a call from Tony Gertz, who's doing in the industrial park, doing a building. All that got shut down because it was deemed industrial or commercial. Ron can correct anything I'm saying, obviously. However, the good news is he got a tenant that is in the food industry for his building, and actually was able to work with Ron and Arnie, it looks like, into the afternoon here in order to restart his shell and at least close in his building due to that tenant. In case somebody, so it's a little different analogy than the Glavin building, which is industrial, where this now is food related, and he has a lease agreement on the reasons why that's starting back up again. And we'll say, Tony, it was said that, Ron and Arnie are very good to communicate with, and they seem to have got into a direction now where we're not looking for clarity, but if they see why, if someone was to question the council member why it's being, why construction workers are there, this is why, if I'm correct, Ron.
Correct. You are correct, Deputy Mayor. At the outset, I don't believe Tony Gertz had really any signed leases as to what was going to go inside his building. So when the provincial order came down from Toronto that all commercial industrial building had to be stopped, they stopped. So at the stage in which Tony was at, that meant the outside walls were mostly up. There was trusses laying on the ground, and here you are left with a building that's exposed and everything else. So he was quite concerned. Fast forward a week or 2 weeks, he has now secured a tenant, which is food service related. So obviously that's new information, and that grants him an exemption from the construction freeze. So obviously Arnie, knowing that he's going to be held, his feet are going to be held to the fire, because here poor Matt Glavin is sitting there. He's probably a month away from being able to move into this building, and he doesn't qualify for the exemption. So if all of a sudden Matt Glavin saw some construction restarting on Tony Gertz's site, you can be darn sure a phone call would be had, like, how come he can go and we can't? So Arnie, doing his due diligence, needed to make sure that was the case and had some ammunition to prove that this was food related. So he and Tony have communicated back and forth numerous times, and I believe as of this afternoon, Arnie is satisfied. He's got the information he needs on paper, and construction will be restarting on the Gertz site. So
that's all. Well, thank you. Just in case anyone else got a comment on it, that was all I wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I just want to share a comment that was I was in communication with Jillian Kernahan. She's the CEO of St. Joe's Healthcare Foundation. She's also leading the regional response for hospitals for COVID for the Southwest LHIN geography, and leading the long-term care response, and the triad responsible for the region for the LHIN geography. And she provided a short commentary, kind of an update. It's always good to know what's happening directly from the healthcare. She's also, I understand, functioning as a dual role as the CEO of LHSC is off on medical leave, Dr. Paul Woods, unrelated to COVID. So her short-term commentary is the hospitals have stepped up to create capacity to care for individuals who may present with COVID-19 and continue to care for people who have urgent needs. There's still good capacity available in hospitals to respond. For people who've had appointments with most physicians are reaching out by phone or video link to address the needs where possible that people have. She wanted to thank the public although it is hard work for their understanding that there are services that we cannot offer at this time that are not urgent. And we will work collaboratively across the province to reintroduce these services once there's indication that capacity will not be required by the COVID patients. Please encourage the council to support the physician distancing measures. They are flattening the curve. So thank you very much, everybody in the community. This is working. So we've got capacity in the system. So there's no fear in this case for our residents that there is the availability of services, and the healthcare is doing a great job. So thanks to those essential workers.
That's great, Peter. Thanks very much for bringing that up, because I think everybody does need to be reminded that all of this hard work that we're doing and the sacrifices that we're making are really paying off. And it's great to you know, the numbers are one thing, but I think it's key to be reminded that the hospitals are working well, and there is still capacity. It's interesting. I sit, of course, on the Ambulance Authority Board, and you know, the wait times at the emergency departments are no longer existent. And you know, we joke it took a pandemic to deal with that. But there is concern because, number one, are people afraid to be going to the hospital? And I don't think people should be afraid. Hospitals are doing great work, and if you have a problem that is unrelated to COVID and you need to get to the hospital, you know, the frontline workers are there, and they'll look after you. But you're absolutely right. The work that's being done at the hospitals is incredible. And if anybody has not seen it, there is a tour because, of course, they've set up the field hospital at the Agriplex at Western Fair because, of course, they were preparing for larger numbers. And if you haven't seen that video, it is quite something to see how they were able to construct that. So thanks very much, Peter, for sharing that. Alex.
Okay, yeah, I got a couple of things. The first of which is I'll touch on what you spoke of early in the meeting, Madam Mayor, about the tragedy in Nova Scotia. So I read today that the numbers have gone from 17 to 23, and as the investigation continues, they think there may be more. I'm asking council if we can lower our flag in honor of those people lost. I read our flag policy, and it is a matter for us to consider. And I hope that we can do that to send a message that we, as a small community like was affected in Nova Scotia, care deeply about what happens there. The second thing is I was approached by our local community garden people to look into the restrictions on the use of the gardens under the COVID-19 restrictions, and made connection with our member of Provincial Parliament, Monty McNaughton, who has assured me that he is looking into it and doing what he can to help us with that, because our community gardens, in tying into what we discussed earlier, our community gardens provide a tremendous amount of support to our local food bank. The Granton gardeners alone last year donated over 500 pounds of fresh produce. And as the end of the summer comes, the need is going to be even greater if this emergency lockdown continues. So we're hoping that they'll be able to give us some leeway to be able to plant our gardens and raise our crops so we can donate to the food bank and give them a supply that they'll desperately need as the time goes on. So I would encourage everyone here to maybe reach out to Monty and let him know that we need his help, and if we can get that to happen, our gardeners can get the food bank supplied with some fresh produce later on. That's all I have.
Okay, Alex, did you want to make a motion with regards to the flag policy or the flag? And one, I don't know whether you can just refresh your memories because we just reviewed the flag policy.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we lower the flag for a period of 1 week in honor of those people lost in Nova Scotia. The flag policy generally covers heads of state, current working employees of the township, members of council, that sort of thing. But there is a provision in there for that to be at discretion of the CAO and the mayor, and I would assume with council's input and approval as well. So I've reached out to members of council, and there seems to be support for it. So I would ask that we make a motion and have a vote.
Okay, Alex, we need a seconder for that motion. Any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Dave, Deputy Mayor.
Because I think, which is good, I think we changed the policy. The only thing what Alex said there, unless I'm wrong, I think when we changed it, it was a vote, exactly what we're doing, that it's not at the discretion of the CAO or mayor to make this decision, that it is a vote. Is that correct? Ron's shaking his head. Yeah. No, that's right. When Alex said that, I thought that we did change the wording, and that wasn't how it was stated. So no, I'm glad glad we have the policy, and I certainly support it. Thank you.
I think it should be noted that I think a number of municipalities are lowering their flags. So, okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor to lower the flags for a 1 week period. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other councillor comments? Okay, I will say it just triggered my memory when Alex brought up about Monty. Both our MP, Leanne Rood, and our MPP have been in regular contact with me, and I certainly have appreciated that support. They've been very good about letting me know about new programs coming down the pipe, and any new announcements that would be affecting us that we should keep our eye out. So I certainly appreciate the support getting from them. All right, moving on. There's no changes to budget. Notices of motion. Okay, we will go to our motions and accounts. So resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph approve the accounts as paid as follows. March 2020, $1,495,924.29. A mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman. And all opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph adopts this revised strategic plan prepared by Sierra Planning and Management as presented at the April 21st, 2020 Council meeting. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Regan. And a seconder, Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorizes staff to proceed with the purchase of a 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD pickup truck with Commander Industries dump box from Huron Motor Products in the amount of $48,693 plus HST. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Mander, or Deputy Mayor Manders, seconded. All opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorize staff to contribute $3,000 to the Lucan District Lions Club to assist residents within the Township of Lucan Biddulph with social aid during the state of emergency declared March 17th, 2020. And further that the Township of Lucan Biddulph acknowledges that these funds shall be allocated from the CEDC 2020 budget and managed by the Lucan District Lions Club. And further that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph endorses the recommendations of the Mayor to establish a social task force to address gaps and next steps for the township's recovery process as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. A mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan, and seconder, Councillor Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, read a third time and passed, and that they be numbered 16-2020, the confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Masterakis. All opposed? And that is carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:32 p.m. A mover and seconder for this. Councillor Regan and Councillor Masterakis. All opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. It's great to see you all. You all look great. Hang in there. We'll get through this. Thank you.